Welcome to Madden on the Line. I'm Jo Madden, and today Madden on the Line by Crosscheck Media, BizTalk TV. We're going everywhere across the board. You know, if there's money on the board, we're paying attention. The Final Four is set, you guys. What a weekend of sports we had. It was a craziness in college basketball with March Madness. Who can believe what happened to Duke in those final seconds with UConn walking away? And this is where the madness stops being complete chaos and starts being more about those matchups, the experience, and the execution. Today, we're breaking down the Final Four, diving into the women's tournament as well, and looking across the entire board. We've got NHL, NBA, MLB, because right now, this is where there's value everywhere if you know where to look. So let's start with what's moving. But first, before we do, if you take anything away from today's show, I want it to be a reminder to you all not to bet high money line favorites. We look at what happened to Duke over the weekend, and yeah, absolutely disappointing for Duke fans out there, losing that game in that final split second there to UConn, but also to bettors. You look at Duke going into that game on the money line, where people put their money. They laid between minus 220 and minus 238 on Duke just to get the win. So you're looking at that. You're having to pay $220, $238 just to win 100 back. Okay, so Duke led by 15 at halftime. Everything looked great, but bettors lost a total of $1.7 million backing Duke on the money line. You never want to look at favorites as highly juiced. Now, everyone has their own kind of juice tolerance out there, how much they're willing to lay to make back $100. For myself, the highest I have ever gone is minus 144. That means you have to bet $144 to win 100. It still seems really high. I have adjusted since then. I've come down to the minus 110 mark, minus 112, minus 113 is really the highest I like to go. Now, there are certain situations, especially when we look at baseball, which laying a little bit more juice does make sense if you really like a team. But like we always stress over here on Madden on the Line, not every game needs to be bet out there. So please avoid those money line favorites. And I want to thank you guys for joining me here today. So that's everything you take away from the show. Make it that. Let's look at the money movers. But before or after we do, we're going to have Tyler Shoemaker come in. He's coming in here. I'm so excited for him to be on as a guest. So we're going to bring him in on the next couple of minutes here. Those money movers, though, this is where we have to quickly look here. So first, it's the Final Four. You look at it now. This stage is so big for these playmakers. These lines are tightening up. We're seeing Illinois versus UConn. That spread is only 2.5. We got a total of 139.5. And then Michigan versus Arizona, we got a spread of 1.5. A higher total, 157.5, as we know Arizona can really get those points on the board. So can Michigan. So that will be an interesting one. The lines are more efficient right now, though. Looking at less public money coming in as well. This is all about the matchup, less about the momentum. Then we still do have the public driving up those favorites. UConn, Arizona will be the public favorites, in my opinion, at least. You're still going to get money here on Michigan. Doubtful you get a lot of money, in my opinion, at least on Illinois. I think there's going to be more public money on UConn in that matchup. So definitely a value on dogs when we're looking at the Final Four. There's a lot we're going to break down with Tyler Shoemaker on these as well. And as for the women's tournament, you guys, it's one of the fastest growing betting markets. Not a lot of people are talking about it. I can't wait to break this down with my guest today. So there's a massive increase in the handle. The public are heavily betting those stars and those brands out there. And it's a less efficient market for the books, at least, than the men's. So there's bigger edges and there's bigger availability. So we're going to get into all of that. We know MLB opening week has been a little volatile out there. Public still looking to come in on those favorites like the Dodgers and the Yankees. Those run lines, you're looking at that, and you're gonna have to pay still a heavy price in a lot of those games. So the public is betting those favorites. It does lean you towards those underdogs, those run lines, and fading that hype out there. Now, the NBA, we're still in track for the playoffs, right? So you've got these teams, you've got huge favorites. And one thing you want to look at when you're looking at the board in the NBA is who is too big of a favorite out there. They just need to get the win. They don't need to run away with those games. Those backdoor covers are coming into play in the NBA. So definitely you want to make sure when you're looking at those playoff teams, if the tanking team could at least cover that spread. Two of the most public teams, the Boston Celtics and OKC, and we're going to get into the Boston Celtics game later in my card as they take on the Atlanta Hawks. And I do think that's a great revenge spot for the Atlanta Hawks, who did lose to the Boston Celtics Friday night. So definitely something to look at. And then in the NHL, after my guest, Tyler Shoemaker, comes on, we're going to break down a lot more in the NHL, you guys, because playoff urgency isn't a must. We're going to look at those teams looking for the wild card spot. We have the Stanley Cup playoffs race is so competitive down the stretch. 6 teams in each conference are all vying for their positioning. First place is open in all 4 divisions. So it is craziest. We know what happened with the Vegas Golden Knights firing Bruce Cassidy just the other day, and Tortorella stepping up in his place. Only 8 games left for the Vegas Golden Knights. And with that, we saw this happen back in 2000 when the New Jersey Devils fired their coach and brought in Larry Robinson. And guess what? The New Jersey Devils went on a run and they won the Stanley Cup in that year. So while people might be saying this is craziness for this to happen with only 8 games left, Vegas is looking for that pattern to continue. If you want to look at the Vegas Golden Knights, currently plus 1,500 on the money line to take the Stanley Cup. So we're going to break down more in the NHL, everything that you need to know. But firstly, we're going to be talking the NCAA, the March Madness out there, with my guest, Tyler Shoemaker, coming in here from Avisen. We're going to break it all down, what he's liking. So let's welcome him to the show. Tyler, happy Monday.
Happy Monday, Jo. Glad to be here. Glad we could finally make our schedules aligned to work this out.
Yeah, it's so exciting to have you here. I'm so glad you want to talk the women's tournament as well. But we know everyone wants to hear about the men's, the madness. Duke, what happened to Duke this weekend? Because I tell you, I didn't expect it. They're up 15 points at the half. Did they choke that one away?
Yeah, and honestly, I bet UConn plus 5.5. So basically at halftime, I stopped even checking the score. I was like, all right, well, this was a bad bet. Like I was on the wrong side clearly. And then, I started getting texts and stuff like, oh my God, did you see that shot? And then, I got on X and saw the replay because I didn't watch the second half because I was just annoyed that I thought I lost my bet. So UConn came through, but we'll get to their matchup here in the Final Four in a minute. But I'm gonna have to fade them. I think coming off of that big win.
Yeah, that was an insane win that they were able to get. Their drive, their ability to fight back in that game was fantastic to see. And that's what March Madness is all about. So when you look at the Final Four here, which of these 2 matchups are you most surprised to be seeing out here?
Probably the UConn-Illinois one, honestly. I actually did, when I did my bracket, and I'm not a big bracket guy. Like this time of year, people ask me, for bracket tips and that sort of thing. I do one bracket and that's kind of it. I just spend more time, on the day-to-day betting of it. But I did have Illinois actually advancing to the national championship in my bracket. That's a really, really good team, really well-coached team. They got a lot of love throughout the year, and rightfully so for their offense, but defensively here in the tournament is where I've really been impressed with them. They've played in some lower scoring games than they're used to and still finding ways to win. And then UConn being here is probably the biggest surprise, but is it really with Dan Hurley coaching and, his kind of psycho moment after I love it. I've got his book here on my shelf behind me. I really like Dan Hurley. So I think these are going to be two great matchups. Arizona and Michigan were probably 2 of the 3 best teams all season. So I think it's going to be a great Final Four.
Yeah, it definitely is going to be a Final Four to be remembered here. I was shocked that UConn wasn't able to get past Michigan State. That was such a tight battle out there at the end of that game, but they were able to make their way through. So let's get into the Final Four games because we got a ton to go over as we get into the women's as well. But looking at that first matchup, UConn versus Illinois, we got a 2 seed versus a 3 seed. You're looking at a spread of 2.5 and a total 139.5. When you initially look at this, any gut instinct on that total, or are you going to look to just fade UConn?
Yeah, so this is hard. So part of my process with my formulas, especially this time of year, is I have a season long projection where I've accounted for, how they played in December and how they're playing now in March. But then I also look at how they're playing over the last 3 games, which in this case is, throughout the tournament. And for the total specifically on this game, the season long projection would be 142.5. But looking at the tournament numbers, I would only project that total at 135. So I think this line is right where it should be, kind of right in the middle of that. So I'm not going to have a play on the total. I'm only going to play the side in this game.
Okay, so Tyler, when you're looking at things like that, are you looking to live bet these games as well if you see that number drastically drop in the first half or even during the start of the game with a couple of missed baskets, or is live betting just not the market you jump into?
I do live bet, and I always say that there's 2 strategies with live betting. You can either see how the game starts and think like, okay, well, this is how it's going to continue. So I'm going to bet, maybe coming into the game, we'll take this matchup for instance. Let's say coming into the game, I like Illinois. Well, UConn jumps out 10-0. One strategy is, okay, well, UConn came to play. I'm going to back UConn right now, on the live line. My strategy is kind of the other one though, where I have my number coming into the game, which on this game is Illinois -5 is my projection. So if I can get some early game value on Illinois, if UConn goes up 10-0, I'm definitely looking to see if I can get an extra play on Illinois plus the points, knowing that they're probably going to make a run as well.
I absolutely love that because that's exactly how I tackle the live betting market. I know the team that I want to see, and then I go against the team that goes up when that team that I wanted to see come out and get the win is at a better value. So I love we're on the same page with that. So you're expecting Illinois. Your line has them as a 5-point favorite. What exactly about this team do you think gives them that edge over UConn?
Their season long body of work. This is one where I think the line is probably about right based on where these teams how they've performed in the tournament and opponent adjusted numbers throughout the tournament. I would make that about Illinois -2.5. But I think the body of work here, and I really like the spot. To me, I feel like it's hard to get a really good spot handicap in the tournament, at this point very often. But I feel like if there's ever a spot to fade a team, it's right now, coming off of that shot, that comeback. As a former player, I know how emotionally draining and physically draining it is to be a part of something like that, to then have to turn around and now play the best team you've played all year, arguably in Illinois. So that's a big ask for Dan Hurley's team. So I'm going to fade them partially on the spot and partially on my season long projection on this game.
Okay, then moving on to the other game, Arizona versus Michigan, two of the best teams all season. Like you said, this one has a high total, 159.5. We do see Michigan laying 1.5 in this matchup. With a line so tight, are you more so willing to lean towards the money line than laying the 1.5 or grabbing 1.5 for either of these teams?
So I bet Michigan -1. My projection is Michigan -2. So it doesn't seem like there's a lot of value there because it's only a point off. But I would also caution people, the lower the spread, every point becomes even more and more valuable. So 1 point of value on a 1 or 2 point spread is more valuable than say 3 or 4 points of value on a 18-point spread, for instance. So that's kind of where that comes in. And then looking at how these teams have played in the tournament, I actually will project Michigan -6. So that's kind of where my thinking is, because I thought for most of the year, I thought Michigan was arguably the best team in the country. And then they hit a little spurt there, like in February, where they just were not playing well. They weren't covering the number. They were not playing very well at all. And they have really kind of flipped that switch here, I think, in the NCAA tournament. And they're playing great ball right now. Yeah. Full transparency, I did pick Arizona to win the national championship in my bracket before we started here because Michigan was not playing particularly well at that time. But what we've seen in the tournament here so far, I do like Michigan, and I did lay 1 point with Michigan.
Okay, we're on the same page here, Tyler, because I have Arizona to take it all as well. And I didn't know. I was worried about them in their last matchup. You look at Michigan, though, Michigan taking down Alabama the way they did, 90-77. It was so impressive what we saw out of them defensively, holding Alabama to only 77 points and offensively being able to put out 90, winning that rebound battle. And so I'm nervous for Arizona in this one. And I do think you're on the right side there with Michigan. You're calling for Michigan versus Illinois then in the national championship game. That should be one heck of a game. If it plays out that way, Do you have a lean already towards who takes it all?
I have not run the numbers on that yet. Because I have to do men's and women's, like I literally just have to take it a day at a time. I'm looking here really quickly though. Looking at how these teams have played in the tournament. Illinois is a 30. So I would actually Michigan's actually been about 10 points better in the tournament based on their performance relative to their opposition. Now I don't have their season long numbers here in front of me, but that's about where it would be. I think season long numbers would probably be about Michigan -5.
Okay.
So I would definitely lean Michigan to win the game for sure if they match up with Illinois.
And then anyone, just to note, you guys, if you're not a regular bettor in March Madness in these matchups, you can go in and you can find that exact matchup for both of them to advance and play each other. You're going to get better odds than just taking Illinois and Michigan to make it to the final dance there. But let's look at the women's tournament here. We've got actually 2 games today. Not sure if you got bets in these games today. We did see UCLA in women's beat Duke yesterday. So that was a 72-58 win. We also saw UConn take down Notre Dame there, 70-52. So great games out there in the Elite 8 in the women's basketball yesterday. But today, 5 p.m. Eastern, or actually I think that's 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm looking at 5 p.m. my time. We have Texas versus Michigan. Anything in this one that you're looking at for us?
Yeah, I did. I laid 9.5 with Texas here. They have been unbelievable since the SEC tournament. I saw them firsthand. They played here in Greenville, South Carolina, so I saw them up close and personal. And I was really impressed when I saw them. And they've been an absolute buzzsaw so far in the women's tournament. So I think they're going to handle Michigan pretty comfortably here. I projected Texas -12.5, but looking at the last 3 games, I would actually make it Texas -25. So I think Texas has the potential to really run away with that one here today. And then the South Carolina game, I didn't play the side because my projection is right with the market, basically South Carolina -15.5. But I did play the over. I projected at 140.5. I bet it at 131.5. I think it's now up to maybe 133 last time I checked. But I still like the over even at that number in the South Carolina game. And I like Texas to lay the points here.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit more about what it is about this Texas team that just brings that strength? Are they a strong defensive team? Are they a strong offensive team for people that really don't know about Texas and women's basketball?
Yeah, they're both. Their guards are very good defensively, but they've got probably the smoothest scorer left in the tournament, and that's Madison Booker. She, I believe, was the SEC Player of the Year last year. She didn't win the award this year, but she's phenomenal. She plays like a female kind of Kevin Durant, very smooth, very effortless scorer. And they have great size inside, which obviously in the women's game can be a huge advantage. And they have multiple bigs inside that can really play and control the glass in these type of high pressure games. So I really like what I've seen from Texas. Unfortunately for them, they're eventually going to run into UConn, and I don't know that they've got enough horses for that.
Okay, so looking at people getting into betting women's basketball, because we know the majority of people look at men's basketball out there, what would be the best advice when they're tackling college basketball for women out there, Tyler?
Yeah, I would say if you're not betting women's college basketball, you're missing out on a very beatable market. I think I'm up 18 units this year, and that's been pretty consistent over the last several years. That's kind of, I started off in this industry more of a college football guy, and I still do college football, but I think as time's gone on, more and more people follow me just for women's college basketball and WNBA because they're very beatable markets. And my numbers, my T-shoe index really does a good job capturing those performances and making good projections on those sports.
Absolutely. So if people are looking to follow you, we know you have your shows on VSiN, but also the tshoeindex.com. They can follow you over there. What can they expect when they go over there, Tyler?
Yeah, over there, I've got weekly, monthly betting packages, which, that's great. But really what I do is try to provide information. So the best thing I do is put out guides. I don't do it for college basketball because there's so many teams, but for WNBA, college football, NFL, I do my guides where you get all of my projections for every single game, and as well as the bets. Plus, every team has their own page where you can look at their schedule and look ahead to see what they might be projected against a team. And I have a projection tool built in there where you can, select 2 hypothetical teams to play a matchup and see what my numbers would spit out as the projection. So a lot of cool information. I want to give you bets. I know everybody likes the picks, but I really want to provide information as well.
Yeah, the education is absolutely priceless that you're providing out there, Tyler. So that's tshoeindex.com, you guys, to go on over and follow Tyler over there. Tyler, I've got one more question for you
Yeah.
before you go. If people want to back Illinois and Michigan, should they be betting the numbers now, or do you think we're going to see a little bit of movement? Do you think public money is going to come in here on UConn, or should we bet it now?
I think we've seen the line move at least a half a point towards Illinois, but I definitely think there will be some UConn buyback at some point. So I think if you can get Illinois at 2.5 or better, I would take it and not be too concerned about every little half point at this point. But I definitely think UConn will be the public side for sure.
Okay. Well, Tyler, I want to thank you so much for joining me here today on Madden on the Line. Keep crushing, and we'll hopefully see you back here again shortly.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Anytime.
Thank you. You guys, that was Tyler Shoemaker. Make sure you go over and give him a follow. You can catch all of his shows on Visa and then his website, tshoeindex.com. You definitely want to check out. So we're going to get more into the NHL, what we're looking at out there, who's kind of on the bubble. I do want to give you guys the best bet segment for anyone that's just sitting here and saying, okay, I just want to hear what you're betting today. I'm not that interested in the NHL. So we'll get into the NHL last year. We're going to get into the best bets, what I'm looking at across the board. Now, NCAA, the men's tournament, for myself, we're going to really dive into that on Thursday. I do think money should be coming in on UConn. I would like to see Illinois fall to a 1.5 point favorite. I'm not sure if we'll get there with them falling to a 1.5 point favorite. So I want to wait on the line. I do think public money is going to come in on UConn. Tyler thinks the public money will come on UConn as well. Not sure how much it will move that line though. And then for Michigan versus Arizona, I do think Arizona has the ability to battle it out here with Michigan. Michigan's going to be a hard team. We'll jump into more first half bets as well as some total bets when we talk here on Thursday. So as for now, I want to kind of let this line marinate a little bit, see where public money starts to move, see if some sharp money can move this line in any direction, and then we'll start looking at those totals and those halves. So we're going to get into that later as we look out there. On the diamonds today, we got the Blue Jays versus the Rockies, and the Blue Jays started off really nice, taking on the Athletics out there in their series opener. They were able to get the sweep. I do think they should come out here nice and strong versus the Colorado Rockies. The Rockies only won 43 games last season, and yes, it's a new team. They're looking to go strong, but they went 18-63 out there on the road. The Blue Jays last season went 54-27 at home, and I do think they continue to roll. Your fear here is in the first game of the series versus the Rockies. Versus the A's, they weren't able to cover that run line, only winning at 3-2. This one, you could look at them on the run line. You're going to have to lay some juice around the -130. This is a game where you would hope Colorado could get out first and can come back right in on the Blue Jays after. So definitely a live look. Going into the game, so the Tigers versus the Diamondbacks, I think is a really interesting matchup. Verlander getting that first start here for the Diamondbacks. Now, last season with the Giants, he did have an ERA of 3.85 and a 1.36 whip. And then for the Diamondbacks, so for the Tigers starting Verlander, for the Diamondbacks starting Soroka. Now, I really like Soroka. Soroka has that ability to get those strikeouts on the board. Last year, playing for Washington, 16 games, he had a 4.87 ERA. But he had 87 strikeouts in 81 innings pitched. So the ability of a pitcher to come out strong and get those strikeouts on the board is different from that ERA. You guys, it's definitely something you always want to look at. And Soroka is one of those pitchers. He also, with the Cubs, had a 1.08 ERA, 6 games, 8.1 innings pitched, and 8 strikeouts. So I'm looking at him in this matchup versus the Tigers to go over 4.5 strikeouts. I think he has every ability to get it done. As we turn to the NBA, you want to fade big public favorites out there. And there's a couple big public favorites out there on the board in the NBA today. When we look at it, you got the Phoenix Suns laying 12.5 versus the Memphis Grizzlies. You've got the Spurs laying 18.5 versus the Chicago Bulls. And then you have the Cleveland Cavaliers laying 17.5 versus the Utah Jazz, as well as OKC laying 12.5 versus the Pistons, and the Lakers laying 16.5 versus the Wizards. Those are games I'm going to avoid. I don't want to look at teams. You've got teams that are just tanking. They're not playing well. You've got these big favorites here laying all the points, but what is the motivation for these favorites to blow teams out of the water? It's not there. They don't want to risk injury. We're going into that final stretch, you guys. So I'm avoiding the big public favorites, but I will look here at the matchup between the Boston Celtics and the Atlanta Hawks. We've seen the line move. The Hawks were a 1.5 point favorite at home. They're now a 2 point favorite here at home, and they're minus 134 on the money line. I do think they have the ability to win this by margin. The Boston Celtics played last night, second night of a back-to-back, and the Atlanta Hawks have been so solid at home. You also saw the Boston Celtics take the win versus the Hawks at home on Friday night. And I do think the Hawks get that revenge angle. So this total is also ticked up a whole point. It's 223.5. The Atlanta Hawks are one of those teams that can trade back and forth threes out there with the Boston Celtics. They have every ability to bring it nice and strong. So I do think the Hawks are the team that you want to back tonight. I'm laying the 2. You guys, I did get earlier at 1.5. I'm still comfortable with the 2, and I would take it over the 223.5. I know Boston on the second night of a back-to-back. We haven't had confirmations yet, but expecting at least Tatum to sit in this game. They just can't risk him at this point in the season, especially when he came back from injury. He's got those games under his belt, and he just had a stellar night last night versus the Charlotte Hornets, and he dominated out there. I believe it was 32 points and 8 assists he was able to get on the board. So dominant performance out of him in the last game. I think they do end up sitting him tonight. So as for the NHL, we're going to look at this. We're going to look at all of these teams on the bubble. First, the bets that I'm placing tonight in the NHL. Before we go anywhere, and don't forget the Stanley Cup odds for the Vegas Golden Knights, because I'll probably forget to remind you guys again, is plus 1,500. We do have the biggest favorite on the board on the ice is the Colorado Avalanche. They're minus 375 versus the Calgary Flames. Calgary's already beat them once this season, and Calgary's in a situation where they're playing spoiler. You got the Colorado Avalanche sitting nice and healthy at first in the Central. This team, even though they've got a strong home record, they've actually lost their last 4 at home as a favorite. They're coming off the loss to the Winnipeg Jets, in which I had backed Connor Hellebuck of the Winnipeg Jets in the game at home for Winnipeg, but he took a loss there. He was able to bounce back, had a really strong performance. I believe it was Saturday or Sunday that we did see these two in action out there. So yeah, it was Saturday. So you're looking at that. Connor Hellebuck took down the Avs in Colorado. So Colorado's coming off a loss, but Calgary, they've been scrappy. They've been looking to play spoiler. They've been keeping these games tight. 3 of their last 4 have gone to overtimes against good teams like the Tampa Bay Lightning. So you've got Devin Cooley between the pipes for Calgary. I think Calgary keeps it tight. You look at a puck line here at plus 1.5, at plus 116, and Colorado, Nazem Kadri, who was originally with Calgary earlier this season, it's been 24 days that he's been over here with Colorado, has the ability to come out nice and strong and hit Calgary. I do think if someone's scoring from Colorado, Nazem Kadri has the ability to be one of those playmakers out there. So you could look at him for his point tonight. It's probably going to be too highly juiced. I took him for the anytime goal. That's coming in right around that plus 200 mark. On the side for Calgary, you've seen Morgan Frost really stepping up. He's got goals in 3 of the last 5. So Morgan Frost is someone you want to circle as well. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think this stays under a 6.5. I think this is a 3-2 win here for Colorado. Now, could Calgary play upset? They absolutely could. They could come out nice and strong, get that plus 290 win, as Colorado's kind of in this weird spot, right? They're first in the Central. They've got this game versus Calgary. Then they've got a game versus Vancouver, who's already been eliminated from playoff contention on deck. It's kind of like a low spot where maybe they're not stepping up as much as needed, looking to build that energy to go into the playoffs, with all of these teams basically having 8 or 9 games left on deck. So I'd avoid Colorado. Again, like I said at the start of the show, if you take one thing away from the show, money line favorites are absolutely killers to your bankroll. They're minus 375 on the money line. You guys, that means you have to pay it $375 to win back 100. It's just not worth the risk. Risk versus reward, you guys. Always remember that. you want to look for the plus money that you're able to make out there on the ice. And Calgary plus 1.5 is plus 116. So to bet $100, you're going to win back 116. So let's get into quickly for anyone who wants to hear about where we're sitting in the NHL, which teams are sitting on the bubble, which teams you really want to look at out there. Your wild card teams in the West. You've got the Utah Mammoth. They're sitting 38-30-6 with 82 points. Okay, they've got 8 games left. You got the Nashville Predators with 77 points. They're sitting 34-31-9 on the season, 8 games left. You got the LA Kings. They've got 9 games left. 29-26-18 with 76 points. So they've got a game in hand and are only a point behind the Predators. You got the Seattle Kraken with 75 points. They've got 10 games left. The Winnipeg Jets with 74 points, 9 games left. Remember, this is a team that was able to take the most points last season. You've got the San Jose Sharks, and they're making a huge push. You got the Sharks, 73 points, 11 games in hand. So the Sharks are completely in it. They've got a game tonight versus the St. Louis Blues. I am taking that one under the 5.5, you guys. Just to note, I forgot to tell you guys about that one before. I do think they stay a lower scoring game. The Blues are another team that's out there playing spoiler. They're right there with the Sharks, though. They've got 73 points, 10 games left. So these two teams are fighting it out as well. So your wildcard teams in the West, once again, are Utah, Nashville, the LA Kings, the Seattle Kraken, the Winnipeg Jets, the San Jose Sharks, and the St. Louis Blues. So it really does feel like the Mammoth, it's the wild card or bust, right? For this team. They really need to come out strong. The Predators, they've lost their last 3 in a row. So they're allowing the door to get open to those teams behind them for that second wild card spot. And then you look here at the LA Kings. They're coming off that 6-2 loss to the Mammoth on Sunday. They've got to get things going. The Kraken with 10 games remaining, 4 against teams ahead of them in the Pacific Division. So they really need to turn things up. They'll face the Oilers on March 31st, the Vegas Golden Knights on April 9th and 15th, and then the Kings on the 13th. So they've got a huge slate in front of them in the Pacific that they need to get things done. And then we know we've got Vegas. Now Vegas is on deck tonight. We talked about it at the kick of the show with the Vegas Golden Knights firing Bruce Cassidy, bringing in John Tortorella. Their ability to take the cup is there. Again, those trends, Devils did it back in 2000. They fired their coach. They bought in head coach Larry Robinson, and they went on to win the cup. If you think the Vegas Golden Knights has the ability to do so, that's coming in at plus 1,500. Not going to lie, I've already sprinkled on that. They're taking on the Vancouver Canucks tonight, a team that's already been eliminated. Now, Vegas is a large favorite, not as big as Colorado, but they're still minus 360. Too big of a favorite in this one. On that puck line, you're still laying too much. Minus 1.5 is minus 144. I told you at the start of the show, juice tolerance is different for everyone. I can't lay the minus 144. I'm going to lay this one on an alt puck line, laying 2.5 goals. So they've got to win it by 3 goals, you guys, but Vancouver is done. Laying the 3 goals here is coming in at plus 110. So you're taking the Vegas Golden Knights, you're bringing it down to plus 110. For them to win by 3. Another way to go would be to win in regulation. I do think the Vegas Golden Knights have every ability to. The other bet I like is Vegas first period puck line. They have to win the first period by only a goal, and that's coming in at plus 100. So lots of different ways there to go with the Vegas Golden Knights. I do think that next coach up situation puts them in a fantastic spot to be able to come out nice and solid and get things done tonight. I really do think they take it. When we look at the East wildcard race, you guys, we've got the Boston Bruins with 92 points. We then have the Columbus Blue Jackets with 8 games remaining. The Columbus Blue Jackets with 88 points with 8 games. The Ottawa Senators, they got a game in hand and 86 points. So they're 2 points behind the Columbus Blue Jackets, but they've got a game in hand. You see the Detroit Red Wings coming in with 86 points and 9 games as well. The Flyers with 86 points and 9 games. And the Washington Capitals with 83 points and 8 games remaining. Now, for the Washington Capitals, you got to feel for Ovechkin. The Capitals and Ovechkin will have to make a huge push here to be able to make the playoffs. So you're looking at this team. Ovi, there's been hardly any games or any seasons in his career where he hasn't made the playoffs. So there's going to be a huge push out of the Capitals. Look for that huge push out of Ovechkin. There's so many question marks if we'll see Ovi hit the ice next season after the trade deadline. Those trades that happen, and Ovechkin just truly was disappointed. I don't think we're going to see him next year. So if you are in the ability to make one of these games, I think this is the last chance for you to see Ovechkin out there on the ice. I hope I'm wrong, but I really think it's going to be the case. But the wild card race is something, but it's also craziness out there within these divisions, how tight these teams are from taking it. Now, there's been a lot of talk about the Pacific Division, and we know what happened with Vegas this weekend with the coaching change. This division really has been a pillow fight. Like Connor McDavid said, you got the Anaheim Ducks sitting at the top with 86 points. You guys, we talked about those wild card teams where they're sitting with their points. The leader in the Pacific only has 86 points. It's crazy. There's 9 games in hand for the Anaheim Ducks. You have 83 points for the Edmonton Oilers, 8 games in hand. And the Vegas Golden Knights, 80 points with 8 games in hand. Who's going to take the Pacific Division? I do think Vegas has every ability to take the Pacific. That's another way you could come in on betting the Vegas Golden Knights as they make a push to the end. But you're looking at all of these divisions that tight out there. You want to start looking at these teams that are battling it out for number one in their division, what it means for their matchups, and who they will face by locking in that number one spot. Those motivation angles are completely out there, and it's something we'll break down further on Madden on the Line here on Thursday. But you guys, that is it for Madden on the Line, presented by Crosscheck Media, Biz Talk Today TV. I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. Big thank you to Tyler Shoemaker for his valuable information, not only in March Madness, but the women's tournament as well. The Final Four is set, you guys. The board is completely loaded, and this is where discipline completely matters the most. Thursday, we'll be focusing on all of my best bets for the madness. Don't chase the chaos. Follow the numbers, you guys. I'm Jo Madden. Again, thank you for joining me here with Crosscheck Media and Biz Talk Today TV. We'll see you back here on Thursday. We're going to have a loaded show. Got a fantastic guest stepping up. But until then, you guys, all the best.